Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to my shop. Alright, and welcome. Let's say you've got a 4.6, 5.4, 2-valve Triton engine, and you're starting to hear some strange sounds on cold startup, or when you're sitting somewhere like at a red light or a drive-up window, and you're hearing in gear and you're hearing a rattling sound. But once you give it a little bit of gas, the sound goes away. Well, there could be a couple things that causes that, but if you got a lot of miles, which generally most of these 2-valve engines will have now, mine being a 98, it'll more than likely it may be something to do with a loose timing chain. I'm going to go over a few tips and tricks. This won't be a how-to do it. I'm just going to kind of point out how to troubleshoot it, and then the tools you'll need and how long it'll take to do it, and you can determine whether or not you want to fix the thing or not. So stay tuned and let's talk about it. Alright, I'm going to try to be short and sweet and get to the point so you can determine if you want to try this or not. But this particular truck is a 98 F150. It's got the 4.6 2-valve Triton engine. It's the Romeo engine, not the Windsor. Okay, there are some slight differences, but a whole lot of the procedures are the same to get to that chain. Okay, but the guides are a little different, and there's just not many, but there are a few differences in the engines themselves. Now, like I said, you're sitting at your first cold startup, you hear a noise, or you're sitting at a red light, or in a drive-through window, especially a drive-through window. That's when you can really tell, because the sound's going to not reverberate off the wall. Anyway, you'll hear that rattling. You're in gear, and you hear that little rattling sound, but then you turn your air off, and it goes away a little bit, but it's still there. Throw it up in neutral, and the idle picks up, and it almost goes away. Well, in this case, with this particular truck, that was the first signs telling me that I had a loose timing chain. Now, again, the air compressor for the air conditioning, it can be making that noise. The water pump could be making that noise. The idler, 2 idler pulleys, or the alternator, anything that's spinning could also make that noise. So what you need to do is determine real quick where the noise is generating from. I found the easiest way to do it is to use a wooden stick. You can also use a long screwdriver, or who was it? Eric O. He has a funnel with a long tube to it, and that's how and I think that's the slickest way. I might try that the next time, but I'm old school, so I use a stick. Now what you want to do while it's idling, now if it only happens while you're in gear, meaning that the idle is slowed down enough, chalk your wheels, put it in gear. It'd be better if you had somebody sitting in there also, but I was by myself, so I chalked my wheels, set my parking brake, put it in gear, and there it is, rattling away. And you carefully place this around the front timing cover. You can get it down behind stuff to get to the water pump, and you can even get down to the air conditioning compressor. Now this stick may be too wide. You may need something thinner, or a long screwdriver, anything that'll conduct sound, and then you just listen in. And I was determined real quick that the sound was loudest coming from my right side or passenger side timing chain cover area. My air compressor, my idler pulleys, my alternator, water pump, none of them were making a noise. It was coming from there, so I knew it was my timing chain. So, I decided, well, do I want to tackle such a thing? So I got on the YouTube and watched a bunch of it. There's a lot of good videos on how to actually do it, the nut and bolt way to do it. And Fortec, Make You Loco, real good one to watch. But there's several others, a couple Mustang guys. There's some differences down when you're dealing between an F-150 and a Mustang, but the basic premise of the chains are the same, especially if it's a Romeo engine. But anyway, let me get to it real quick. So I determined it was coming from the timing chain, and of course I'd throw it up in neutral or park and would raise the idle, what, 100 RPM. But that 100 RPM was just enough to quiet it down, and it would just purr along. So, but anyway, the lower the idle, the more the chain would rattle. And coincidentally, well, it's not sitting here. I've got a 75 Corvette with the small block Chevy 350 engine, and it was doing the exact same thing. So the lower the idle, especially once it's warmed up, is when you'll notice it. But I also noticed it on this engine on a cold start. About 30 seconds after starting, I guess after the oil got good and circulated, and the chain, I guess, stretched, heated up some, it would quiet down, and I would only notice it then in traffic at low idle. But anyway, so I said, all right, that's a major operation. You got to practically take everything apart to get to it. And so I made a couple phone calls to shops that I've used in the past and a few people that I know. First shop said they didn't want nothing to do with it. It was a 98. It was too old. They said, well, we get into that, we'll find all kinds of stuff, and the price will run ridiculous as high. So, no, I'm sorry, you know, we'll do all kinds of other stuff, but we're not going to do a timing chain on one of these. I said, okay, that's fine. Next shop I called, it took them 24 hours to work the estimate up. Now, it was an estimate. And it came back at $2,240 plus incidentals. What are incidentals, you say? Oil. You got to change the oil because stuff's going to get down in there. So you change the oil. I'll show you a tube that I busted trying to get it off. So that's an incidental. That was a $60 incidental. So it can add up over time. So just $2,240, not even figuring incidentals. Whoa. So I called my buddy and his, the last guy in my shop, and he's done some work for me before. And he said he was backed up. He said, you know, a job like that will take a while. And he looked up in his flat rate book, and it only showed 8 hours. I'm going to guess that that's for a 2-wheel drive truck. Because with a 4-wheel drive, with the off-road package, you got too much stuff to work around. And you ain't going to do it in 8 hours. Or, 9 hours. But so I determined after talking to them 3 shops, and since I do have a backup vehicle, I was going to do it myself. So, how many hours did it take? I'll be up front with you right now. It took 3 times the book time. It took me, I've got 3 full days. I'm talking about at least 6-7 hour days in doing this job. And oh yeah, if I were to do it again, I could definitely probably cut that in half. But there ain't no way I can do it in 9 hours, not with it being a 4-wheel drive with the off-road package. And that makes a big difference in access. All right, so let's get to the nut and bolts of the thing. All right, what do you got to do? All right, well, the first thing is the big nut on the fan. Now this has got the mechanical fan, all right. It's the thermostatically controlled clutch fan, and I don't have a wrench big enough to get to it. So I'll show you. Well, I'll tell you what. Before I get to that point, I'm going to show you the tools that I had to use. I got them laid out over here to do this job. Here you go. At one point or another, I used every one of these tools on this job. Now this back here is a torque wrench. There's some that's measured in inch pounds, so you need a torque wrench that'll do inch pounds. And that'll go all the way up to 40 foot-pounds also, which is good because there's some bolts on this engine that you'll torque to 35 foot-pounds, but the majority of them you're going is to inch pounds. So you need an inch-pound torque wrench. I've got a bigger one, torque wrench here. That's for the harmonic balance nut, and a couple other big ones that are torqued a whole lot higher than what that small one will go. Lights. Need lights, all kinds of lights. Hammers. Deep well and short well metric sockets, because that engine is all metric. All right. These right here, this number 8 especially. See this right here? That's a necessity to get to 1 bolt on the power steering pump, because you've got to remove the power steering pump, and there's 4 bolts that hold it in. Okay, 3 of them are accessible with a flex and either a deep well or a short well socket. One that you work around a high pressure line, only this flex wrench will work. I didn't have these, and I determined I wasn't going to buy just one, so I bought the kit. I ended up using the 10 too, but I could have worked around that. But you need that, definitely need that flex wrench, okay? And let's see, we got our 1/2-inch drive. This is for the pulley to pull the harmonic balance off. This is definitely necessary to get those plastic rivets out. All right, every one of these tools. All right, now most of these are standard tools. An electric wrench, a ratchet, or air powered, a necessity. I'll go ahead and say a necessity. You will be still turning nuts by hand if you're using a standard ratchet. That is much. This is for that big nut that's on the fan. Okay. Like I said, I don't have a wrench to get to it, so this is what I used with what did I do with it? With this soft hammer. Bang bang. All right, also that worked somewhat to get it off, and I also used this dude some to break that big nut loose. You can go on one corner and bang it down. That's an air impact, and that did the job. Definitely need a long wand. All right, you need a long air wand. Long needle nose helped. That was really good. While I had it to that point, I changed my plugs, and that was handy on getting those boots, the plug wires off the plugs. Okay, some Loctite blue. I know it's a red thing, but it does say blue on here. And some Permatex. I used the ultra black. 5/16 and 1/4 inch. Safety glasses while you're underneath. Like I say, all these were necessary. Now here's also a very necessary special tool just for this job, and this locks down the cams. Okay, there's what happens when you align your timing marks on your chain. You want to, before you take it apart, okay, before you take that chain and the ratcheting adjusters off, you want to get your timing mark set. All right, you get your timing marks where you want them. Like I say, there's really in-depth videos on the online that'll show you, but your bottom sprocket will have a 6 o'clock mark. Your right side or driver side sprocket will be at 11 on its mark, and your, passenger side, your left side or driver side sprocket will be at 12. And there's also marks on the chain. You want to get it to that position, lock it down, and go from there. But these are definitely a necessity, and that's all they're for. You'll end up buying this special tool just for this job, and I believe this cost me about 25 bucks off the jungle site. Anyway, oh, and another, I don't show it, a mirror. All right, that helps to see that timing mark. A couple magnets, so you don't have to keep going down on your hands and knees to retrieve them parts. All right, so that's pretty much it. Now also, This is an EGR tube that that the bolt that bolts to the exhaust manifold, the nut. All right. Instead of it turning loose and spinning on the copper, it just snapped right off. So this was that $60 add-on that I had, because I snapped it off. And you gotta have, this is for the EGR part of the system. You almost need to plan on breaking that. You may luck out, depends upon if it's ever been replaced before. I use Felpro gaskets. Of course, you got the oil here, PB blaster, brake clean, pad to clean the gasket surfaces, another impact for heavier duty, and let's see, side cut. You see, that's all the tools. So if you don't have these tools, you're going to have a hard time getting this job done. And I'm going to show you a few other things on the engine before we button this up. Now you can see the big nut down there. That's the one I'm talking about, to get the fan loose. Now if you got electric fans, then you don't have a problem with that. All right. And but that's a big dude. Now this being a Romeo engine, I don't have coilover plugs. Okay, those are the injectors there. I have these plug 2 coil packs, one on each bank. Okay, so that's got to be removed. Take good pictures, because this whole section area has got to be removed and moved over, because you're not going to get that valve cover off without it. And 2 more special tools that I had to use to get this valve cover off was 2 short bungee cords to hold all the wiring and all this stuff up out of the way, and it was just barely enough room to get it out. Now I tried to put the valve cover on with just the Felpro sticking up in the there's runners on the valve cover that the gasket sticks up into, and if you had clear shot to everything, you wouldn't need to put any kind of sealer on it. But to hold that gasket into the valve cover while you're maneuvering it around, I found it easy to glue the gasket up into the valve cover and then put it on that way. All right. On this driver's side, here, let me get some different additional light. Of course, right there you can see there's the coil pack for the driver's side. This bracket right here for the power steering, that bracket's got to come off. The power steering, just swing it out of the way. All this air cleaner stuff has to come off, and it all pops off. Like I say, there's good videos out there that show step by step how to get to it, and but you gotta, you remove all this plastic, all of it. This comes out. Now in order to get the you have to get the shroud out here. In order to get the shroud out, you got to break the fan loose and unscrew it and bring them both out almost as one unit. All right, and then that's plenty of room. Then once you get the fan out and the shroud, you got plenty of room to do your job in there. And one other thing, let me point down there. Now the actual pump for the reservoir here for the power steering, let me see if I can get a light down there. Okay, I should have taken this video while I still had it apart. Well, you may not can tell right there, maybe you can see it. You can see the belt going around the pump down there. Well, that's in the way of the cover. There's 4 bolts that holds that power steering pump in. Okay, and like I touched on before, 3 of them, you can get 3 bolts out somewhat easily. It's that one that you need that flex wrench, the number 8 flex wrench, in order to get it out. And I thought that was going to be the beast of the job, but it ended up the hardest part of the whole job to me was was getting the valve cover on and off over on the right side. Now I've got a skid plate down on the bottom of this, so the skid plate had to come off, and that was the only way I could get into that the power steering pump to get it out of the way. All right, and then another thing you want to do, you want to have a manual, because or you take a lot of pictures, but a manual's also helpful. You want a manual that's got your torque specs. Almost everything you're going to use is a 13, a 10 and an 8 millimeter. And most of your torques are either going to be, what are they? 18 foot-pounds, or, oh, what was it? 18 foot-pounds, or, oh, I can't remember the inch-pounds. But you definitely got inch-pounds, especially around the bolts on the cover. I had to remove the plug wires and the injector wires, and get the whole harness out of the way in order to get that valve cover off. Ironically, on this driver's side, I did not. Matter of fact, I left everything intact down there. It was easy to work around it. Like I said, I've had this truck since new, and it's got 100 and almost 75,000 miles now. So I think that's pretty good for a timing, set of timing chains. And so I'm not really complaining about it. While you're in there, now let's say I caught mine. Matter of fact, I'll show you what my chains look like. All right, here's my old chains and the guides. If you notice, the guides are not worn. There's no pieces missing, no chunks of plastic or anything missing on these guides. Matter of fact, I probably could have got another, I don't know, maybe 10,000 miles out of them before changing it. And when I laid the new chains next to these old chains, there was I'm talking about maybe a couple millimeters of difference in the size, okay? Now, on the replacement chains, when you lay them out, at this end will be a different colored link, and this one. That's how you time from to the bottom to the top sprocket, and the same on this one. Now, I didn't see it on these OEMs, so I don't know how they did it on the OEMs, but none of these. So I guess what I'm getting to is I caught mine in the right of time, to where it hadn't got any of any chunks of anything. It didn't get into the cover, getting all that aluminum down in there, or aluminium, however you want to pronounce it. None of this plastic chunked down or broke down. No metal pieces. That's a grenade pin. No metal pieces. So I caught it just at the right time, and I determined that I wasn't going to have to drop my oil pan and to clean out the pickup, because there was nothing there. So anyway, while you're in there, you may want to change out your oil pump. Like I say, I had no damage. I've had no problems, and I've never had anything come out on it. I do all my own oil changes. I've never had anything come out that is caused any kind of damage. My cam journals look good. Everything looked good, so I decided not to change my oil pump out. That could come and kick me later, but again, that's one of them parts that if you do have a lot of worn stuff and chunks missing, you ought to think about changing that oil pump. All that said and done, I can't think of anything else as far as special. It's just standard, like I say, you have to disconnect your battery, of course. And I'm about to take this out on a good test run, but I've been idling it now a good, at least probably 30 minutes or more off and on, just to make sure everything is okay. Got to burn some of the oil off the manifolds, because some will drip down. But anyway, now I'm going to start it up and let you hear what this engine sounds like now. I should have taken it before, and I thought about it, but I never did it. So anyway, so here we go. So I don't know if you can tell, but it's ice cold, and there's no rattling. So even just a millimeter or two of chain stretch was enough to wear to cause that noise. And I would be hearing it now. So he's good to go. Well, on this test drive, I'll know I got a lot of tools to put up. I just wanted to put this together to help you make you if you're going back and forth on whether or not you want to try to do this. Well, that's covering some of the things that I ran into. And like I say, I got 3 long days in getting this done. And in parts, I probably got about 400 bucks. I'd say about 400. So anyway, there you go. All right, we're out on our test drive just to make sure everything's okay. Took it to the car wash, washed all the stains off that I put on it. And so far, I'm about 10 miles into it, and I seem to be doing all right. Had a little bit of high speed and a lot of low speed. Some idling, you know, uphill, downhill. So it pretty much has gone the gamut of what it'll run into. And so far, it seems to be holding all right. No new noises or anything. Of course, I'll know when I park it if I see any new puddles, because this thing didn't leak. I may have said it earlier in this episode, but I've got to remark on how impressed I am with the build quality of this truck. I bought it brand new in '98, and it had maybe a couple miles on it from pet test drives when I bought it, and I've had it since then. And so I kind of know any new sounds or anything it would make. But the few things I've had to do to it, it's just every wire loom is secured. It's either bolted down or using those plastic rivets. And nothing, you know, no rattles, nothing's loose. And very little gasket sealer on these gasket surfaces, and it seems to be holding good, so that means the machining's pretty good. So I'm pretty impressed with it. Of course, you know, that's kind of why I kept it. This is the most major thing I've ever had to do to this since I've owned it. But 100 and almost 70, what I got, 174 or 5, something like that. That kind of miles, you know, stuff tends to wear out, and I've got so many original parts still on this truck. Now, sadly enough, though, this truck was assembled or made in the Norfolk, Virginia plant, which is since closed, and I'm going to guess it's probably in Mexico now, and which is a shame. Of course, the engine was made up in Michigan, Romeo, and of course the rest of the truck with pieces from wherever, but they assembled it there in Norfolk, and they just did a great job. I mean, I can't complain at all about the longevity and dependability I've had out of this truck. So, but anyway, so to me it was worth it. Even if I ended up having to spend big bucks to get it fixed, it was worth it to me to fix it, because everything still works as it should. So anyway, now to get back to the topic at hand. Well, I hope that I pointed some things out. Again, this wasn't a step-by-step. There's too many of those videos out there on the YouTube now that are very good, and I couldn't do anything better than that. So basically, if you're at a crossroads, if you're hearing the noises, and you know that the longer that noise goes, the more damage it's going to do. So you're at a crossroads. Should you fix it? Should you pay to have it fixed, or should you just trade it and get something else? Well, I kind of showed you what you'll kind of run into and what you'll need in order to do a timing chain on a 2-valve Romeo engine, and the Windsor engine's real similar. And you may decide to try it on your own. So anyway, if you do, good luck. And it's not rocket science. It's just got to take your time, get a manual, and follow the torque specs, and you'll be good to go. So, hope everything's going good with you and yours. Everything's going great here. Can't complain. Won't do me no good to complain anyway. Just carry on and take care of that business. So have a good one, and I hope to see you around on the next one. See you. Bye.